Overview, talking about various scenarios, master data, and other data elements in SAP MM and WM module. Another thing that which you guys have to do is, all of you, please make sure that you have a pen and paper ready. I'm going to provide you a lot of notes today, so make sure that you bring a pen and paper. If you don't have it, please go get one pen and paper. If you want to make electronic notes using some text file, Word file, that's your choice. I'm fine with it. But make sure that you're ready to take notes. I will be providing you notes at class today and all the classes which we'll have in the future. This is our agenda for today. In that, I'm going to talk to you guys about master data in SAP MM. I'm going to talk to you about organization data in SAP MM. And I'm going to talk to you guys about various procurement processes, inventory processes, and I'm going to talk to you guys about reporting. So that is our agenda for today. The slide which you see at your screen describes entire SAP MM module from very high level, from process perspective. If you look at the top, we have something called material planning. Material planning tells me how do I plan material. So on the top, I have something called material planning. Then if you see here, there are two boxes: internal procurement and external procurement. SAP calls internal procurement means production activities. So production is called internal procurement. And then we have a purchasing, that basically means external procurement. Our agenda is not production, so we will not talk about it. But of course, our agenda is purchasing. After purchasing, if you see the second box here, that is called inventory management. Inventory management. Inventory management basically allow us to manage, plan, control various aspects in SAP. Though that is what is called inventory management, allowing us to manage various inventory processes in SAP. We have something called SAP inventory management. If you look at the inventory management, we have three more boxes: good receipt, good issue, transfer posting. So if you look into the entire inventory management, primarily there are three types of movements of material. Receipt means this is inward movement. Receipt means I'm receiving the material from various sources. Then we have a good issue. Good issue basically means I am issuing the material to various sources. So that is part of good issue. And then we have transfer posting. Transfer posting basically tell us how can we transfer the material between the various sources. So these are the primary three type of good movements in SAP inventory management. So let me write it down. If we talk about MM module, materials management module, it is divided into three buckets: purchasing, inventory management, and logistics invoice verification. I would like to guys make a note of this. Then in the bottom, we have a material planning. Or I should rather put material planning on the top. That is the right order. So these are the primary four areas. So when we talk about the entire SAP MM module, that is what we're going to do. These are the four separate PDFs we will have. These are the four areas we're going to cover in SAP MM module. In inventory management, I mentioned there are primarily three things. Keep making notes, please. We have a good receipts, we have a goods issue, we have transfer posting. Good receipt basically, as the name suggests, I am receiving the material from various sources. Good issue, I am issuing the material to various sources. And transfer posting means I am transferring the material to various sources. So primarily, these are the three activities which we have in inventory in materials management module. That is what this all consists of. So here, that is what we look at it. This is the flow diagram. Invoice verification. Invoice verification basically means I am verifying the invoice submitted by the vendor. And then see the arrow here, integration to the content. Integration to the content. Integration to content basically means how I can integrate to the system. That is where the integration comes into the picture. Another very important aspect of learning SAP, which we will spend a lot of time, is understanding integration. That is the important part of learning, integration. It's not possible, it is not recommended, it's not needed that we learn everything in SAP. Of course, that's not possible. But we will always like to understand the integration. How do you integrate to finance? How do you integrate to sales? How do you integrate to production? There are distinct integration points between these areas. We're going to learn about these areas. In a high level, this picture should be part of a DNA. You must understand, when you understand MM, this picture should be their mind. I plan, planning tells me I need a material. If I need a material, there are two sources, either I buy it or I purchase it. And then another one If I do a purchasing, I create a purchase order, give it to the vendor. Vendor comes back, supply the material to me, I do good receipt. And then I do the invoice verification. Vendor says, well, I supply the material to you, which you asked. This is my invoice. And then I verify the invoice. I verify the invoice. He's my creditor. Remember, my vendor from finance perspective is my creditor. We owe the money, we pay the check. That is the entire end-to-end procurement cycle. So bookmark this slide. Now, the concept of master data is immensely important. This concept of master data in SAP is immensely important. In that, we have something called material master, vendor master, and purchase info record. I would like you guys to make these three boxes. Make these three boxes in your notebook. So make these three boxes. So in SAP, in order to facilitate procurement processes, we have these three important master data. First and foremost, the first box is material master. Material master tells me the product which I am buying. That is material master. Second one is the vendor master. Vendor master tells me who we are buying from. So material master tells me what I'm buying. Vendor master tells me who I'm buying from. And then you see this purchase info record. Purchase info record is the third master data which links your material and vendor together. So make a note. There are many master data in SAP, but these are the three probably the core master data. Material master. Material master is items or services we are procuring from a supplier. And then of course we have a supplier. Supplier basically tells me, or I should say vendor master, because that is what SAP calls. Vendor master is supplier. And then we have something called purchase info record. This is also in short form, a lot of people call PIR. This is another master data. Keep making notes, please. Another master data which links material and vendor together. Now, what is the meaning of that linking the material and vendor together? So let us say I'm buying an item from vendor A. Then vendor will say, well, I'm going to sell you in $10 per piece. I'm buying the same item from the vendor B. He's going to say, well, I can give it $8 per piece. my terms is this, my condition is this. By minimum quantity, I cannot give less than 1,000 pieces. Another vendor will say, well, I can give you whatever you want. Somebody will say, well, another vendor will say, I'm going to take 10 days if you want the order. Another vendor say, no, I can deliver in 2 days. So every vendor might have different terms, different conditions, different delivery date, different delivery time, minimum quantity. All that kind of information get into this is called purchase info record. That is where the purchase info record come into the picture. So purchase info record is the master data which link these two master data together, material master and the vendor master. In the material master, we have a various views. In the material master, we have these views: basic data, planning, storage, accounting, warehousing, purchasing, sales and distribution, work scheduling, quality forecasting. Now, these views represent a function. So pay attention what I'm saying. SAP has divided your material master by different views. That is what SAP has done. In the different views, each view represents a business function. So I would like you guys to make a note of that statement. Each view represents a business function. And SAP has made this whole master data is kind of plug and play. If this material is used in sales function, you create a sales view. If this material is used in purchasing function, you use purchasing view. If this material is used into storage and warehousing, you create a storage warehousing view. If this material is being used into forecasting, then you use forecasting view. If this material is used in all these different views, then you extend this material to all these views. It's kind of a very much plug and play, which you can do with material master. It's very interesting concept. We're going to do exercises also to reflect that. Now the vendor master. Vendor master, as I mentioned, represents supply. Vendor master says that who I'm buying from. And then on your screen, you're going to see these are the 3 different boxes: general data, company code data, and purchase organization data. So in SAP, vendor master data is divided into 3 views. First, general data. Second, company code data. And third, purchasing data. So the entire data is divided into these 3 buckets. So these are the 3 major buckets in which entire vendor master data is divided: general data, company code data, and purchasing data. That is how SAP data is divided. In general data, if you see here, we have address, means address of the vendor, fax number, phone number, email address, bank details. This is called general data. Company code data is maintained from accounting perspective. Means remember, your vendor is also your creditor. Therefore, you are also required to maintain data in the vendor master from the accounting perspective. So like account information, payments, correspondence, tax, and all that. All that information is in company code data. Then we have purchasing data. Purchasing data is maintained from purchasing perspective. And all of them is part of the vendor master. So purchase general data, company code data, and purchase data. The whole vendor master data is divided into these three buckets. I will actually suggest you to make these three boxes just to keep picture of in the mind. I'm kind of a picture person. I feel better when we see the pictures. Okay. Make a note of these three pictures, please. This is how we will do all these exercises multiple times. We are only talking about, this is our first introductory class. So we're talking about very basic things. We're going to talk a lot of these things in multiple times, multiple ways. We're going to do, all these exercises multiple ways. So, which I explain to the people, do not try to understand everything in one go. SAP is kind of an iterative process. It takes time. It requires time to understand and digest a lot of these concepts. So in the one go you can understand, and half of it, and it's more than enough, and it's a good start. So it's an iterative process. Now we're going to talk about various processes, organization data. So that is what we're going to talk about now. On your slide, this is important. I have 5 organization elements from the purchasing perspective: client, company code, plant, store location, purchase organization, purchasing code. I would like you guys to make a note of these 6: client, company code, plant, store location, purchase organization, purchasing code. This is called organizational data. Organizational data represents organization. Organization data represents organization. Now let us talk about this. I'm going to give you a definition. So we talked about client, company code. These are the important definitions. Plant. We will be talking about these definitions again and again. Store location, purchase organization, and then purchasing group. These are organization units. Sometimes we call them elements. Sometimes called organization structures. I'm putting all those names because different people, and they're all synonyms. Organization structure, element or units represents internal structure, internal organizational structure of your company. Okay. Let us understand this as an example. I'm just taking a fictitious example. So let us say name of my company is Coke. So who is my client? Coke. Then we have a company code. Company code represents legal entity. Who is responsible? Keep making note. Who is responsible for balance sheet, or profit and loss account? For example, Coke US, Coke Canada, Coke Mexico, Coke UK, Coke China, Coke India, etc. Remember, all these are legal entities. Coke US and Canada part of the same parent, but they are legal separate entities by law to the government. Coke US represents to US government. Coke Canada is responsible for Canadian authorities, Canadian tax, Canadian company laws, Canadian all legal obligations. That entity in SAP is represented by company code. Plant represents manufacturing entity, where we could be doing production. Note, plant definition is much more flexible in SAP. Is much more flexible in SAP. Store location is further subdivision of plant where we keep store material. For example, we might have a finished good store. We might have a raw material store, packaging material store, etc. Purchase organization represents purchasing entity. Which equivalent to, which is, make a note, which is responsible for buying, negotiating with vendors. It is equivalent to, it is equivalent to a purchase department. So understand this very carefully. When you guys getting interviews, when you guys are configuring SAP system, this is the very first thing you will configure. When you're doing a business blueprinting, when you're working, these are among the very first few things we will be doing. So, clear-cut understanding of these definitions is extremely important. Is extremely important. We need to understand these definitions extremely clearly. Then we have a purchasing group. It represents buyer. For example, in purchasing department, we have a Mike, we have a John, we have a Thomas, we have a Nancy, and we represent them in the SAP in the form of purchasing group. These are called purchasing group. And all of them are called purchasing groups, and all of them are my organization units. When I'm doing a mock interview, these definitions I will be asking you. When you are getting interviews, these definitions would be asked to you. So these definitions are extremely important. All these organization units are connected with each other hierarchically. This is how they're connected. On the top there is a company or client, Coke. Coke can have many company codes. Coke US, Coke Canada. In Coke US, you can have a plant in Alabama, plant in Atlanta, plant in Boston. In one plant, you can have one or more than one store locations. This is how all these organization units are hierarchically connected. I would like you guys to make these boxes in your notebook. Take a minute and put these boxes on your notebook. you will have, although you have a slide and all that, and it's still I'm going to ask to make this picture because for me it is very important to make these pictures so we can understand them very clearly. So this is the organization units in inventory management, how they are connected with each other. Not necessarily, so let's continue. The picture which you see, so let me recap what we did so far. Okay. So we started our conversation today talking about master data. In the master data, we talked about 3 master data briefly. We talked about material master, we talked about vendor master, we talked about purchase info record, and we said purchase info record is the master data which connects material and vendor together. Then we talked about the second part, which is organizational units. In this organization unit, we talk about client, which represent Coke, parent, head office, company code, which represent legal entity. For example, I give an example: Coke US, Coke Canada, Coke UK. Plant normally represents manufacturing entity. Plant sometimes can also be non-manufacturing entity too in SAP. Store location is a subdivision of the plant where we are actually keeping the material. Purchase organization is basically represent purchasing entity. Purchase organization represent who is buying, so it's a purchasing entity. And then we have purchasing group. Purchasing group is basically the buyer. Purchasing group represents and who would be buying, and the buyers working as people working in purchasing departments. In the purchasing department, I have Michael and Thomas and Richard, and all those people in SAP are represented in the form of master data. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk to you guys about this 8 steps of procurement cycle. 8 steps of procurement cycle. Procurement cycle basically represents how SAP process perspective works. Understand these 8 steps. And we're going to talk about so much detail, and we're going to talk about so many modules, this and that and all that. But let me tell you one thing. In all the details and all that we will be talking, everything is divided into these 8 steps only. At the end of the day, we are talking about these 8 steps only. This 8 step which you see at your screen: describe, define, end-to-end purchasing process. And there are many various views of that. That is what basically means. But at the end of the day, you must understand, when we're talking about SAP cycle, we are talking about these 8 steps. Step number 1 is purchase requisition. Now, pay attention. SAP MM module, it starts with an event that somewhere there is a need for a material. That need for a material in SAP is represented in the form of a document that is called purchase requisition. Means purchaser has nothing to do unless we tell them that, okay, this is what you need to buy. And that is basically customer. And that is what is called purchase requisition. The second one is a source determination. So when I'm getting a purchase requisition, the next step is determining the source. In determining the source, basically, I'm verifying that who we would be buying this from. So we have source determination. We verify who we should buy from. Source determination. And after we have determined the source, another one is vendor selection. I select the right vendor. For one material, I have more than one vendor. I must know which one I should buy from. Vendors. After we select the vendor, what is the next thing? We create a PO. I create a purchase order and I send that purchase order to the vendor. Step 4. And after we have created, we do PO monitoring. We see that PO has been reached by the vendor, whether PO has been acknowledged by the vendor, whether purchase order has been delayed and all. And that is PO monitoring. Because once we send the purchase order, it might require certain follow-up steps. And after that, vendor comes to us and deliver the product. That is good service receipts. That is the next step which happens. Good service receipts. Next one is invoice verification. Invoice verification basically tells me that vendor said, oh, I got my material and now this is my vendor. This is my invoice. Please verify, and that is my, invoice verification. After I verify the invoice, I owe the money and then we pay. In SAP MM or any procurement process, it is always these 8 steps. This is our whole course. We will talk on many hours. Ultimately, is this 8-step process. There are variations, there are other things we're going to talk about. The first and foremost document is purchase order. Purchase order is a central document in SAP. Purchase order is the document which tells me that what should we will be buying. Purchase order is a legal document between buyer and seller. And that is represented in the SAP in the form of a purchase order. That's a very important document. Purchase order is connected in SAP in the form of a purchase requisition. It is connected in SAP from RFQ. You see that? You will create a purchase order because you have a purchase requisition. RFQ is a request for quotation. You can do quotationing process also in SAP. And after that, I can send this purchase order to my vendor. I can send this to my vendor and see another arrow here. It says to another plant. That basically means some of these material which we are buying. And other plant means, I was just giving an example. I have a plant in New Jersey. I have a plant in Atlanta. my Atlanta plant is taking the material from plant in New Jersey or vice versa. So many times we do not buy from the vendor, we procure and take material from our own plant. So you can do in SAP both type of procurement, where you're buying the material from a true vendor or you're buying the material from another plant. We can do both in SAP. So that is where the purchasing come into the picture. And I would like you guys to make these boxes. If you take a minute, quickly make these boxes. So these are the purchasing documents. Okay. Okay. So this is the purchase order transaction. In SAP, we have something called item category. Let me make a note of that. That is a technical term. I would like you guys to make a note. Item category is the key in a purchasing document. For example, purchase order, purchase requisition, contract, quotation, etc., which defines what type of item we are purchasing. For example, I'm buying standard material. I'm buying services, etc. It tells me what kind of item I'm buying. So this key defines that what kind of item it is in purchase order. We will see that in system, we will define, and then we'll do certain exercise and all that as well. So item category. There are different item categories in the standard SAP. We're gonna do exercise. We understand all these different item categories. This is the how purchase order is structured in SAP. On the top, oops, what happens? On the top, we have something called header data, and then we have a item data. Header data which apply to the entire document. Item data which only apply to that particular item. So in the header data, we have a data like a vendor. Vendor is called header data. And why this is called header data? Because the whole vendor master apply to the entire transaction. You can only have a one data. Let me make a note. Purchase order information data is divided into two buckets. First, header data. Header data applies to entire transactions. And then we have item data. Item data is specific to an item in purchase order. For example, material, quantity, price, etc. Item data is further divided into item details. For example, delivery date, invoicing information, etc. This is how the different information in SAP is divided. This is the purchase order data, purchase order data. Another thing which you see here, the purchasing document output. I create a purchase transaction in the system. Now, how will you send this transaction to the business user or to my vendor? Let's say I create a PO. And I want to send this PO to my vendor. How can I send it? Option 1, I can do print. And after printing, I can send it to my vendor. Second, I can send EDI. EDI is a very important electronic mechanism. EDI, I would like you guys to make a note of it. It's called electronic data interchange. Some of you might have heard this, some of you not. It is used extensively in various countries. It's used extensively in US, Canada and other European countries to transmit data with vendors electronically. This is an important topic though. At some point of time, I will be taking few-hour class only on EDI because EDI is so very extensively used in the United States. Okay. So this is EDI. Then you can also send email. Nowadays email is very common. SAP support email. You can send email using PDF output to your vendors. You can send a fax. Okay. Earlier you could do telex and telefax. I don't know anybody use telex anymore. But printer, very commonly used. EDI, very commonly used. Email, very commonly used. And some people use fax. You can send all these different information to your vendor. SAP support all those communication medias to interact with your suppliers and vendors and carry out all these transactions. So here's the deal. It's 9:15, so 1 hour 15 minutes. It's a good breaking point. So I don't want to give too much of a thing here. So I will be stopping the class here. This was our first introductory class, and we will have a second introductory class as well.